legislative remedy and formalization of some of the criteria and standards that seem to be just kind of floating in the ether in the various departments. I will, at this point, call for 5 minutes on Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I ask my questions, since it has not yet been done, I think it's important to really make sure that the jingoistic, bigoted testimony of Mr. Homan is called out as nearly completely untrue, as being an outrage, and as a former official directing the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, he should know better. Making sure that I am... Mr. Chairman... No, this is my 5 minutes.
What did I say was inaccurate?
Excuse me.
Okay,
I'm not asking a question.
Okay, the gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes. She's made her point, and I will try to resolve any other issues at the end of her questioning. Okay.
Thank you. So I just think it's important that it's not accepted as accurate testimony. That having been said, Ms. Bueso and Mr. Sanchez, I want to start by thanking you for your courage and for sharing your stories today. Both of you have publicly stated that this policy change constitutes, elaborate on the risk.
Bomb and running away.
It was my...
Similarly situated who've been denied in the past.
I wouldn't say similarly situated. I don't think that any of the clients that I have now in the situation that they're in with the need for critical life-saving medical treatment would have been denied in the past.
Okay, and I don't think they're going to be denied now.
Here comes the response. My name is Samuel Zerza for the ICE channel. Thanks for tuning in. But here comes the response, Homan's response, and he was mad. He was mad.
You got to notice that there's going to be a reopening of the cases. I don't think they're going to be denied. I certainly hope they're not denied. I think all of us are in that category. And based on the communication we've seen, that seems to be where this is headed.
But that's just for those cases that were pending on August 7th. The program has still been eliminated going forward, it seems. And they apparently...
they're going to be looked at on a case-by-case basis.
Just the ones that were pending on August 7th.
Right. I got that.
The program's still been eliminated. That's our concern.
Okay, got it. Okay. Mr. Homan, is there a crisis on the border?
Of course.
And has there been a crisis there for a long time?
Yes.
I just want to get, because your testimony was at the broader issue, and this is critically important, but we also have a broader issue there. We got unbelievable numbers we've seen on the border with apprehensions and everything else, right?
Absolutely. If I can respond to the earlier remark from Wasserman Schultz, I forgot more about this issue than you'll ever know. So if you say my testimony is inaccurate, it's wrong. Everything I said here is accurate. Bottom line, if you want to go toe-to-toe, I'm here. I'm here on my own time to speak to the American people about what's false and what's fact.
I'm sure happy to go toe-to-toe with you, Mr. Homan.
Well, I'm
happy to do
here.
that any day.
But you got to let me respond to your question rather than dropping a bomb and running away.
It was my time.
So there's a crisis on the border. And it's not going to go away if we keep enticing more and more. If we want to abolish ICE, we want to give away college education and driver's licenses and free medical care and reward illegal behavior, you're never going to solve the immigration crisis on the border. It's not going to happen.
Probably doesn't help them.
Gee, there we go. There we go. That's what his response. He's not happy at all, at all, at all. Ms. Wasserman Schultz, he said, let's go for it. Anyways, my name is Samuel Zerza for the ICE channel. Thank you for tuning in.
On humanitarian grounds or otherwise, to be deported. Yeah. Would you agree with that, Dr. Wadia? Is that an assessment? Isn't that correct? Correct. I apologize to you on behalf of the United States of America for the dehumanizing policies that they are pursuing, that are frankly targeting you and targeting many people in the United States. And we're fighting for a better country that we can be proud of when it comes to how we treat all people and understanding the circumstances that they are coming from. And I'd also like to recognize the intrinsic value that you have and offer to everybody that you encounter in our country. Speaking of which, Ms. Bueso, do you remember long time ago, and you may not, but in 2003, participating in a clinical trial for MPS 6 in Oakland, California?
I was really young. I was 7, but I do remember coming here with my mom and participating in a clinical trial.
You said you were 7 years old?
Yeah, 7 or 8, yeah. In 2003.
Do you remember, and again, I know you were very young, but do you remember a girl named Mariel Abreu?
She's from New York.
She's from New York?
Yeah.
She's a constituent of mine. and she wants to write and submit to the congressional record a letter of support for you to stay in the United States. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to seek unanimous consent to offer this letter to the congressional record.
Without objection, the letter will be entered.
And clearly you had a profound impact on her.
Yeah.
And I think it's a testimony to your character and just who you are as a person. That being said, Professor Wadia, direct and deferred action, rather, ensures that children can stay in the United States to receive treatment for life-threatening medical conditions without fear of being deported, correct? And the deferred action is subject to very strict internal controls. You have reviewed hundreds of these actions, of these cases, and the reasons for granting deferred action are generally limited to very serious life and death issues. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
So folks and people like Mr. Sanchez and Ms. Bueso are not collateral damage to this administration's policy. They are the target, correct?
Correct.
Is targeting and changing policy to specifically target people with life-threatening diseases for deportation, essentially killing them through deportation, would you characterize that as cruel?
I would.
This is a cruel policy change, and it fits a pattern that we have been seeing over and over again before this committee of a culture and a policies specifically almost animated by cruelty. We hear over and over again, and we've heard it today from folks across this committee, that they're under-resourced, that we have to continue dumping billions of dollars into enforcement, into putting children in cages, into a system that is quite literally killing people. But meanwhile, we are adding to the resource strains by forcing people to go through the ordeal, forcing this country through the ordeal of needlessly deporting people like Ms. Bueso and Mr. Sanchez. Of course you're under-resourced for your goals, because your goals is to deport people that have no reason on humanitarian grounds or otherwise to be deported. Would you agree with that, Dr. Wadia? Is that an assessment? Is that how this strikes you?
The witness may answer the question.
It does, and it goes to my testimony about how we spend resources. This change in policy also throws a wrench into the rule of law because of the fact that discretion is such a necessary component and part of the rule of law. We have to make choices about who we're going to target for removal and who we're going to place in
And
the
when we want to
back burner.
talk about morale,
The gentlelady's time has expired now. I want to recognize Mr. Meadows for 5 minutes for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Marino, I wasn't going to ask questions, but I'm trying to get my hands around this, and you made a statement that what program is going away? You said a program is going away, and this deferred action in terms of case-by-case situation, from what I understand, it's not going away. It's just the proposal is to move it to ICE. So why? What program is going away?
I haven't seen any proposal to move anything to ICE, and
so what program is going away? I mean,
deferred action before USCIS.
But where are you getting your document? I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I'm not aware of any program that has been recommended that goes away. I mean, these cases have been opened back up, but my understanding was we're just going to move it over so the adjudication is actually handled by ICE. Is that not correct?
No, my understanding is that was what, part of the problem here is that there was no public notice of any of this. So what we know...
Yeah, but your statement to Mr. Jordan a few minutes ago was that the program was going away.
Yeah,
so what program is that?
Medical deferred action at USCIS.
So, and you're basing that deferred action is going away based on what?
So the denial notice we received...
But that's one notice for one individual.
No, well... Everyone that I've seen has been identical. They're all identical.
No, I get that for the 400 and some odd, but we're reopening that up. So I guess
right, but
here's what I don't want to do is create panic, assuming that we're going to do away with deferred action when I haven't seen anything from either of the groups that would suggest that.
It says USCIS field offices no longer consider deferred action requests.
Right, to move it to a different processing.
No, that part's not here.
No, I understand it's not in that letter, but didn't you get a follow-up letter on that which says they're opening up for the adjudication?
So,
Yes.
so then they issued a press alert that they were going to reopen these cases.
Right.
September
And so anybody that you have in the queue right
which
now.
they said USCIS stopped its consideration of deferred action for non-military requesters. So they said that the cases that were pending as of August 7th, they were just going to clear out those cases. But the
Okay.
program, deferred action has still been ended.
All right, so Mr. Chairman, what I would like to, excuse me, Madam Chairman, I didn't see you pop in the chair there. Madam Chairman, I would like to, let's work together. I think what we've got is a situation where, listen, you don't have a compassionate bone in your body if you're not looking at this and saying, we've got to address this. We're going to address this. Here's what I also don't want to do, Mr. Marino, is assume that we've got this panic out there that we're going to do away with everything. I would like to work in a bipartisan way to figure out how we look at the humanitarian needs that we have and yet do it in a way that is systemically reasonable and yet efficient. Does that sound fair?
I think it sounds fair. I think it'd be good for us to come together and at least provide some certainty in the lives of these folks.
And I'll yield the balance of my time to Mr. Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Meadows. Just adding on that, the same question, just to extend, is it and let me ask you this to Mr. Homan. You said earlier that you think, Mr. Homan, that ICE is the proper place to deal with these questions. Am I mistaken in my understanding that what we've got here is simply, for better or worse, for this hearing to decide and for the purposes of what Mr. Meadows and Mr. Ocasio-Cortez just were just talking about, how this process should work? In other words, in this case, USCIS is saying, we're not processing after August 7th. Right? We're not going to handle these. We're not going to make these deferred action decisions after August 7th. Essentially, then that goes to ICE, and then ICE is going to have to make, other ICE will deal with decisions they're going to deal with respect to expedited removal decisions or anything else. And then ICE can choose to figure out how to handle these questions if ICE puts in policies in place that would allow that to occur. Is that, Mr. Homan, your recommendation or thought?
ICE already, they make prosecutorial discretion decisions every day on, do we arrest, do we not arrest, do we detain, do we not detain, do we put in proceedings or not put in proceedings, do we remove or not remove? And like I said earlier, I have personally approved deferred action requests, days of removal for medical issues. So it isn't like the whole process is going to go away. It's a bureaucratic process to move from one agency to the other agency, and it's currently in an agency that I don't think should have the authority over making decisions that the other agency has statutory authority over. That's the basis of all prosecutorial discretion matters.
And let me just add one thing. It's just, we'll ask this question of the next panel, right, about what their intent is. And then when I get my time back, I want to address with Mr. Marino, your head shaking in both directions. So let me do that when I get back.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes the gentle lady from Massachusetts, Ms. Presley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to say that our colleagues across the aisle have stated outright and implied that there are dramatics happening on this side of the aisle. No drama, just hard facts. And that is that repeatedly, people have been asked to weaponize their lived experiences and their pain, which has been brought about by neglect or by intentional attacks by this administration time and time again. People have come before this committee to talk about the trauma of gun violence, the trauma of what's happening at our borders, the trauma of negotiating life-saving medication like insulin, and now the trauma and the fear of children, people that are coming before this committee demanding that we see the humanity and the dignity in them, appealing for their very lives. That's where we find ourselves. So just when I think The occupant of this White House and his xenophobic administration cannot reach any new lows, they go even lower, deciding to give seriously ill children and their families 33 days to leave the country or risk being deported. No dramatics, the hard facts. And because of the outrage by millions of Americans, because this does fly in the face of the values that we espouse as a nation and the public outcry and the partnership of my colleagues and the leadership of this committee, we are having this hearing today to shine a spotlight on this appalling policy, that lives are hanging in the balance, and to hold this administration accountable. No dramatics, no posturing, just the hard facts. And to add insult to injury, they tried to do this under the radar, no public announcement, no opportunity or effort to hear from those most impacted. Appalling, shameful. These family stories have spurred righteous rage, public outcry, and rightfully so. And I want to thank Mr. Sanchez and Ms. Bueso for joining us, for your bravery. You are true patriots by every definition, in my estimation. I can only imagine how hard this is. Battling a chronic life-threatening illness layered by the threat of deportation. I want to also thank your caregivers and your caretakers and your families for being here with you and what they do every day. Mr. Marino, can you please just succinctly clarify, because there's been a muddying of the waters here, truly a revisionist history. We would not have Ms. Bueso and Mr. Sanchez here doing what they are doing in the face of great physical and emotional burden if this was a fake panic. So can you please clarify the revisionist history by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle and tell us, why do you think it is necessary for USCIS to continue to grant deferred action, and just speak to what has transpired here?
Sure, I'll give you a little bit of the history as I understand it and what we've learned. I also think that Dr. Wadia is probably better prepared to answer some of this of why it belongs at USCIS, where this program always has been. There is no new program at ICE, and none of my clients are eligible to apply for anything from ICE. They can't walk into an ICE office and apply for deferred action the way that they always have from USCIS. I believe that what Mr. Homan is talking about, he's saying he's granted stays of removal in the past. That's only available to people who have been ordered removed and are on orders of supervision. So they've been ordered removed and ICE is actually carrying through with deporting them. It's basically on your way to the airport, you can ask us for permission to stay for a year. And maybe then we'll consider it. So I don't know if the suggestion, I don't understand it, but it seems like maybe the suggestion is that you drag kids from their hospital beds into courtrooms, make them go through a removal proceeding, have a judge order them deported, then turn them over to ICE, and then maybe they're gonna exercise discretion. I don't really understand.
I'm running low on time here.
Sure,
Dr. Wadia, is there something you want to add on the record?
When it comes to affirmative deferred action requests, this is a policy that has been in the jurisdiction of USCIS since its inception. These are individuals who are not yet in the removal system.
And it has been terminated.
And it has been terminated.
Okay.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from West Virginia, Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and Ranking Member Roy, and to all of you all for being here today. Ms. Bueso and Mr. Sanchez, I want to thank you for sharing with us your life stories.